This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Whoa. Landing an account this big will totally change my landscaping business. It's going to mean hiring more guys and more equipment and new trucks for the new guys to drive the new equipment in. I don't know if I'm ready.
You can do this, and Ford Pro FinSimple can help. Our experts are ready to make growing pains less painful for your business with flexible financing solutions that meet the needs of your business today when you need them. Get started at fordpro.com/financing.
Hello and welcome to Want to Hear Something Weird, a weekly weird podcast about weekly weird stuff. I'm one of your hosts, Tom.
And I'm one of your other hosts, Laura.
Laura, how are you doing this week?
Tom, I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking. And how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I've got some weird stuff to share with you this week.
Well, that's my favorite thing to hear.
How familiar are you with, I feel like I always start off every episode asking you.
Yeah, well.
It's like, how familiar are you with, using crystals to enter other dimensions? Like, it's always something that I feel like a normal person would not be very familiar with at all.
That's true. And I think 9 times out of 10, I'm not familiar with what you're about to tell me.
No, yeah.
Which makes it exciting.
Wanted to do this show, Want to Hear Something Weird. And
because I wanted to hear weird stuff.
Yeah, but maybe you're in over your head. Maybe
it's too much.
It's been revealed that I'm too weird. Well, this is a weird one. This is more of I guess like a fun one.
Great.
I don't know how, especially nowadays, I don't know how seriously people take it, but boy, at the time, people really took it seriously.
Okay.
This is a story about a man named John Titor. Are you familiar with that man's name?
I don't know. It does sound familiar.
It probably sounds familiar because he's a world famous time traveler.
Oh, okay. I probably met him then.
So this is a guy. So I'm pulling a lot of info here from Wikipedia and from Thrillist.com. And then what was the other website? Hold on. Let me find it. It had a funny name. StrangerDimensions.com,
Ooh.
which is right up my alley. So that's where I'm pulling some of this info from. But the basics here are that around the year 2000, somebody started posting online. Now, this is 2000, so this is probably pre everything, probably even like pre MySpace or maybe even early MySpace.
Maybe, yeah.
So he was posting to forums, old internet forums, not not social media or anything like that. Mm-hmm. Did you ever post on any old forums when you were
I sure
young?
did.
What kind of forums?
Live journal.
Not want to admit?
I was a big live journal.
Well,
person.
that's not a forum.
It's not?
That's a live journal.
Mm.
I'm saying like the forums where like people start threads and then they reply.
Like the pre-Reddits.
Yeah, the
I guess not. I guess I didn't really.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I don't know how often I posted, but I lurked a lot in the Foo Fighters forum.
That sounds like you.
At the time. Because again, these are the days when like it was hard to find information about stuff if you really like something. There was no social media,
right.
No Reddit, no YouTube. So forums were where people went, but everybody was siloed. But it wasn't just, yeah, I guess I should just get into how this started. It started like all great stories, all great weird stories, with a fax to Art Bell, the host of Coast to Coast AM. And the fax reads as follows. Dear Art, I had to fax when I heard other time travelers calling in from any time past the year 2500 AD. Please let me explain. Time travel was invented in 2034. Offshoots of certain successful fusion reactor research allowed scientists at CERN to produce the world's first contained singularity engine. The basic design involves rotating singularities inside a magnetic field. By altering the speed and direction of the rotation, you can travel both forward and backward in time. Time itself can be understood in terms of connected lines. When you go back in time, you travel on your original timeline. When you turn the singularity engine off, a new timeline is created due to the fact that you and your time machine are now there. Some interesting outcomes of this are: 1. You meet yourself. I've done it before often. Even taken a younger version of myself along for a few rides before returning myself to a new timeline and going back to mine. 2. You can alter history in the new universe that you have just created. Most of the time, the changes are subtle. Sometimes I'll notice car models that don't exist or books that come out late. Unfortunately, it was also discovered that anyone going forward in time from my 2036 hit a brick wall in the year 2564. Please pray that we discover the reason why there is no apparent future after 2564. So he went on. Of course, people wanted to know more about this. This was a fax, but then he started posting on the forum.
So wait, fax, where was it getting sent to?
To Art Bell.
Oh, right. Okay.
Coast to Coast AM. I guess he had a night, which is pretty funny, like open call-in show for time travelers.
Oh, okay.
So, if you're an alien or you work at Area 51, tonight's not your night to call in. Tonight's just time travelers calling in.
See.
And this particular time traveler chose to send a fax instead.
I realized that as you were speaking, I don't mean to derail.
No, that's fine.
But this is nothing to do with anything weird.
What do you mean? I thought
what
you
I'm
were
about
saying
to
this
say.
does.
No, what I'm about to say.
It's like, what are you talking about? This guy says he's a time traveler.
I got so hung up when you said fax because I was thinking you were saying FACTS.
Yeah, no.
And you're saying FAX.
So you thought it was some kind of machine that produces the truth? A fax? Fax machine?
Well, this man knows the facts.
He's got the machine.
So I got so distracted by that thought that I
You're like, yeah. He's from the future. Tell me more about this fax machine. Just you press a button, it spits out a fact.
That'd be pretty cool.
I mean, that's
the internet.
Yeah, except half the time it's lying. So of course, like, people liked hearing this on the show, and he hopped onto the forums of Art Bell afterwards of Coast to Coast AM. Then he did move over to, it was like the Time Travel Institute forums or something like that eventually, but I believe his first post here is: "Greetings, I'm a time traveler from the year 2036. I'm on my way home after getting an IBM 5100 computer system from the year 1975. My time machine is a stationary mass temporal displacement unit manufactured by General Electric. The unit is powered by two top spin dual positive singularities that produce a standard offset Tipler sinusoid. I'll be happy to post pictures of the unit." And he did. He posted pictures of this thing, and it looks believable enough because it just kind of looks like a big box full of electronics and switches and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And he also posted pages from the instruction manual for the time machine that have, fairly detailed drawn schematics of this thing. So I'm trying to think of do you have any questions first off?
Well,
about the start of this, at least.
So is Art Bell reading these?
He
faxes?
read that
Okay.
first and maybe a second fax, and then it kind of moved on to the forums.
I see.
And John Titor was, I guess, fairly active on the forums. If you asked him a question about how something would work, he would respond back to you, no problem. He's very open about this information, including the machine and also why he was back here. So the reason he claims to have come back is, okay, so he says he's a soldier, an American soldier from 2036, and he's in Tampa, Florida.
Okay.
He said he was assigned to a government time travel project. And part of that project, he was sent back to 1975 to get this IBM 5100 computer, which is needed to debug various legacy computer programs that existed in 2036. A possible reference to the Unix year 2038 problem. The IBM 5100 runs the APL and basic programming languages. So basically, it's like a Y2K-esque problem that happens with the way Unix timestamps work. So at 20, I'm not real familiar, and I think this may be like fixed by now. But, in the year 2000, of course, Y2K was a big thing. And then people were looking ahead and going, oh, well, in 2038, this other problem is going to happen. And Unix runs like a lot of like low level stuff, similar to like why people were worried about the Y2K, that bug that, just something catastrophic would happen. He claims that something he did in 1975 prevented the Y2K bug from happening, because I'm sure, all of us that were alive back then, at least, remember famously, everybody being terrified that the world was going to end because computers wouldn't know what day it was anymore. And seemingly like nothing happened.
Right.
But everybody thought like planes were going to fall out of the sky and the grid was going to go down, just all these massive problems. Now, so he's claiming they needed this old computer to fix this Unix problem in the future. And now this is kind of taken from some realistic things that happened around Y2K, where there were like old retired programmers kind of brought out of retirement to fix these bugs. And the reason why they needed them was because in a lot of cases, these programs were running like Fortran or Cobalt, like these really old these old programming languages that like aren't taught anymore, that nobody knows. So they had to bring these people in.
I see.
So the idea that, okay, maybe you would need a computer, an old computer to fix this problem. And now one of the interesting things that people kind of grabbed onto, I guess, with this story, and why people, at least at the time, gave it some benefit of doubt, is he said there was a secret function of the IBM 5100, and that's why they needed it. Now, there actually was a secret function of the IBM 5100, which was that it could run older programs. It had the rare ability to emulate programs in older languages used by IBM mainframes. But the company was worried about how the competition might use that feature, so they didn't tell anybody about it. But this guy, John Titor, knew about it. So apparently it wasn't like, still a state secret, but it was the kind of thing that only like real nerds knew, I guess. Like, so, the people that thought this was a hoax immediately were like, all right, well, at the very least, this guy's like a programmer, because that's not, and remember, we're talking about the internet in the year 2000, that they're like, that's not really like readily available information.
Interesting.
That this older computer had that ability. Titor said he had been selected for the mission because his paternal grandfather was directly involved in the original assembly and programming of the 5100. And then he attempted to provide proof of this by ascribing unpublicized features, which led some people, like I said, to believe he was a computer scientist. He said he stopped off in the year, he's posting from Tampa in the year 2000, that was for personal reasons. And it was to collect photos lost in the future Civil War and to visit his family, of whom he spoke often.
Oh, so he's in the year 2000 for personal reasons.
Yeah.
Specific.
So he's from 2036. He went back to 1975, got one of these computers, but he's making a pit stop on the way back to visit family, get some pictures that were all lost in the Civil War, and, post some sick memes on on the Art Bell and International Time Traveler Forum.
All right.
John Titor also said that for several months he had been trying to warn anyone who would listen about the potential threat of Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease spread through beef products, aka mad cow disease, and the possibility of an upcoming civil war within the U.S., which did just make me think about like how weird the mad cow thing was in like the 2000s, because we didn't really get it here in the US, but it was like bad in the UK, I remember from the news.
Yeah.
But it was still just like played for such jokes because it's like, oh, the mad cow.
Right.
And it's like
it's horrible, yeah.
From what I was reading, I could be talking out of my butt here, but it kind of sounded similar to rabies in that like once you have symptoms, that's it.
Yeah.
Like there's no cure. There's nothing, like it's just this like debilitating, horrible death. But anyway, so he was trying, maybe it worked because I mean, you don't hear that much about it. Would you like to hear more about the machine?
Yes.
That he has. So it's made by GE, which is, weird, I guess, but they make appliances and stuff.
You
so
can see them having a time travel department that's top secret.
Well, I mean, they do have like, they do a lot of industrial stuff and probably have military contracts and everything. He said that he installed it in a 1967 Chevy Corvette that was 500 pounds and got really hot. The earliest post was...
Sounds a lot like Back to the Future. You had to install it in a car?
Yeah, that's...
All right.
So it had...
I see why you're drawn to this story now.
It had 2 magnetic housing units for the dual micro singularities, an electron injection manifold to alter mass and gravity of the micro singularities, cooling and X-ray venting system, gravity sensors or a variable gravity lock, 4 main cesium clocks, 3 main computer units. And like I said, it was in the back of a 66 or 67 Corvette. It doesn't seem super clear. But then later post mentioned a 1987 truck with 4-wheel drive. So he apparently like moved it from one car or the other at some point. But there are pictures of this thing. There is an interesting, like the only picture that I saw that I was like, oh, that's a weird picture, was him shooting a laser pointer at the machine or around the machine, and the laser bends. And he claims like, yeah, here you can see it's like warping reality and time. Look, when I shoot a laser in, see how it changes. So that's pretty neat.
Yeah.
But also these photos are all year 2000 internet photos. So they're all like, I don't know, like 320 by 240 resolution. Really bad. Yeah. You can't really see anything.
Yeah.
Now that didn't stop other people from, maybe thinking, well, why don't I just like copy this? Why don't I make a time? He's telling us how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So one guy, Marlon Pullman, a programmer, wrote on a forum in November 6, 2006. So this is after the main post had died down. I have a degree in physics and engineering and back engineered this based on John Titor's post. I work for a large software company, have no profit motive. I just want one, and I don't have the means to build it. Now, he didn't get a chance to finish that machine. Martin, actually, I don't know when this was published, but as of the publishing of this particular anecdote, Martin Pullman is currently spending 6 years in prison for drugging and assaulting 4 women. According to police, he mixed a cocktail of LSD, ecstasy, and nitrous oxide into spring-loaded syringes and injected his victims in their necks before assaulting them.
Jesus.
So, like, he did have an engineering. It's like, well, this guy should have stuck with trying to build that time machine. That was a better use of his time than coming up with these spring-loaded syringes.
Jeez.
That he would use. So yeah, that didn't work out. Now, predictions. And now also, interestingly, predictions that were the future in 2000 but have come to pass in present day.
Okay. Is this going to scare me?
No. So he talked a lot about and I think we've even maybe talked about this recently, the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, that, there are infinite universes with infinite differences. So he always said, I'm from a different timeline. Like I was saying earlier, he was like, sometimes there are like models of cars I don't recognize or books come out later. But I believe he said at one point that his timeline and this timeline only differed by 2.5%, that they were more or less the same.
How could you possibly calculate that?
I don't know. And also it's like, well, if that 2.5% is something huge, like a war happening or like a disease breaking out, then that's a lot different than like Berenstain and Berenstein bears.
Right. Yeah.
So the most immediate prediction he foretold was a civil war happening in the U.S. He said it would begin in 2005 with civil unrest surrounding a presidential election the previous year, and that there would be a civil conflict he described as having a Waco type event every month, steadily getting worse, and that it would, they would keep spreading to everybody's doorstep and eventually turn into like full out war in 2008. And as a result, the U.S. would be split into 5 regions based on a variety of factors, including differing military objectives, which is like the movie Civil War, right? Didn't they have 5 different regions?
I think so.
So he may have been looking into the future. He didn't realize that it wasn't a documentary, that it was just Civil War starring Kiki Dunst.
Well, that's... if he is 2.5% off, it's not reassuring that it happened back in 2005, because I don't think that that's a crazy thing to think could still happen
now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and he's talking about like sometimes books come out later, and it's like, does sometimes civil wars happen 20 years later than you suspected they would? Because otherwise, I mean, what he's talking about, civil unrest around a presidential election and like a series of events like escalating, like, I mean, it's not the craziest thing, though. I think that's how civil wars do break out often in other countries.
Right. Of course.
And yeah, so it's like not that crazy of a prediction. But he said the Civil War would end in 2015 with a brief but intense World War III, which Titor referred to as End Day. He specified D.C. and Jacksonville, Florida, are cities that would be hit in the exchange. And that he said after the war, Omaha, Nebraska would be the new U.S. capital. He didn't explain the causes of the World War III scenario, but said the hostilities were led by border clashes and overpopulation.
It's just, here's my problem with it. It's so vague.
Right.
If you were someone who was traveling back in time and you wanted to
warn people,
you would be a lot more specific. Don't do this. Don't elect this. Yes. It's just, it's vague.
Yeah.
It's just a little too vague to be believable, I think.
Because imagine if somebody like really did lay out, somebody posted tomorrow and laid out events for the next 6 months and then said, and then after that, this is what's going to happen. And then those 6 months turned out to be, people would be scared. And people would actually listen at that point.
Yeah.
His goal here presumably is to get people to listen to him. Right. And I don't know if you're going to do it by being vague.
Right.
He said that in 2011, when he was 13, he joined a Florida-based shotgun infantry unit called the Fighting Diamondbacks for at least 4 years. In other posts, he described himself as hiding from the war. But he also, like I said, kept talking about like time streams and many worlds. That kind of made his predictions non-falsifiable because he's just claiming, oh, well, something changed because I came back here. So those things I predicted, I guess they don't happen in this timeline, And then I wanted to kind of end here just talking about, I guess, like the follow-ups and the possible suspects. I mean, right from 2001, somebody posted in the Art Bell forum, why would you want an IBM 5100? You can find them at auctions for next to nothing. Why didn't you stop in this year, 2001, first and just buy one? Well, I have a good question for you in 2036. Do you still use toilet paper to wipe your ass? And then he explains like why.
Days.
He explains why he had to go to 1975. He couldn't get like a used one. And he said, yes, we still have toilet tissue, and some people still suffer from extreme anal fixation.
What does that mean?
Just being focused on poop and toilets and stuff.
Okay. Like a kid's like poop humor, toilet humor?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, a lot of crazy stuff's gone down, but people still think toilets are funny. There was this woman, Pamela Moore. She's a John Titor contact. So there's like somebody he talked to one-on-one, I guess, a bunch. Everyone thinks I started out asking John too many detailed questions, but the truth was I had a detailed dream of a time traveler in 1988. And before he disappeared in March 2001, he shared with her a secret song that she could use to identify any imposters. The identification of the song has been an obsession with researchers. There was also like a few copycats, I guess, you know, people that claim they were John Titor.
Okay.
I'm saying Titor, it's Titor. Titor? Titor?
I don't know.
But there was a second public John Titor, believed to be Dana Lee Stern, the senior, a man with a notable criminal record, a pile of aliases, and who claims his own son injected Windex into his brother's brain as a child to give him cancer.
What the?
So a lot of real cool people involved in all of this stuff.
Wow.
And then he had a last final sign off. I'll be leaving this timeline shortly, Worldline, and this will be my final post. And he said, there are only a handful of people who know exactly when I will be leaving, and I'm sure they'll let you know when I'm gone. If time travelers are real, we're all the time travelers. In the past, I've said, quite frankly, you all scare the hell out of me, and I'm sure other temporal drivers would feel the same. But now I have an expanded explanation with 2 examples. So he gives this example about every now and then, when he was driving down a highway as a kid, every now and then we would pass someone who was in obvious distress in their vehicle. I was so amazed that so many people could pass them by without stopping to help. Their explanation was fear. The risk of helping someone was simply too great, and with today's technology, they probably had a cell phone anyway. They didn't. They could walk to the gas station. It'd be good to teach them a lesson about running out of gas. The other is the play of the homeless. When you pass them as individuals on the street, I see the way people selectively choose an alternative path to avoid them. So he's basically like going on to explain, like, yeah, nobody, seeing nobody helping each other. My parting thought revolves around something JC has been harping on since day one. I don't know if that's Jesus Christ or somebody on the forum. No, I do not have a secret agenda, but I've been paying a great deal of attention to your world line. My interaction with you was not a direct mission parameter, but it was a secondary mission protocol based on standing orders given to all temporal drivers. Secondary objective is basically to gather as much information about a world line based on a set of observable variables. When we first arrived, your world line met those conditions. What amazes me is why no one here wonders why Y2K didn't hit them at all. Bring a gas can with you when the car dies on the side of the road. Farewell. And that was
the end of
that
the
was
story?
that was the end of that. Other ones have popped up, but most people believe that those ones are fakes. A lot of people also believe that this John Titor is this guy. I think his name was Larry Herber. He was like a lawyer in Florida, and his brother, I guess, was like a computer scientist. And they like, people research and found, certain things kind of linking to them.
Oh.
Like, domain registrations, things like that, trademarks. So it's like pretty much assumed now that that's who it was.
It was just a big fun experiment for him to.
I mean, this is like, this is the days before QAnon, when like you could do stuff like this for fun, and like, nobody's going to lose their mind and believe it's real and start living their life.
Some people did, probably.
Some people did, but again, there are people that, were inventing needles and injecting Windex and all kinds of stuff. So.
Yeah, yikes. Pretty weird, but a fun, like, Yeah, early days of the internet story.
Yeah, and just like a fun thing to kind of follow along.
Yeah.
But yeah, those days are long gone. If you like the show, you can find out more by following us on social media at WannaHearPod. You can email us wannahearpod@gmail.com. And also, please rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, everywhere you get your podcasts. We love those 5-star reviews, and they really help us out. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you to everyone who's listening and sharing. It means a lot.
We'll see you next week.
Want to Hear Something Weird is a Clamor audio production, distributed by the Cloud 10 Network. Hosted and executive produced by Tom Reynolds and me, Laura Anderson. Executive produced by Aaron Hilliard.
Clamor General Manager Rich Statter. Associate Producer Ethan Aronson. Post-production supervised by Devin Ruskin. Production Assistant Samara Mullick. Special thanks to Sim Sarna and Saiba Krieger at Cloud 10.